He is a dwarf of the Iron Hills. After achieving great deeds in battle at a young age, he would rise to become king of his people, before meeting his end in glorious battle. Today on Nerd of the Rings, we cover the life of Dáin Ironfoot. Dain is born in the year 2767 of the Third Age in the Iron Hills, which had long been a realm of Durin's folk. He is the son of Nain and grandson of Thror, the Lord of the Iron Hills. Dain's nickname of Ironfoot goes unexplained within Tolkien's published works. However, in his book The History of the Hobbit, John D. Ratliff points out that in the original manuscript for the book, it states the shoes of the dwarves of the Iron Hills were indeed made of iron, possibly giving us an explanation for the name. When Dain is just 23 years old, King Thror is killed by the orc chieftain Azog, who throws his decapitated body down the steps of the east gate of Moria, along with a purse of coins, calling Thror's companion Nar a beggar. Thror's son, Thrain II, swears revenge, and thus begins the War of the Dwarves and Orcs. Dwarves from all 7 houses would rally to Thrain's call in this war waged mostly underground. After 9 years, the dwarves and orcs fight the climactic Battle of Azog at the east gate of Moria, the very location the Fellowship would exit from centuries later. We are told that Nain and Dain arrived late in the battle, but proved pivotal. Their force from the Iron Hills arrives fresh and well-equipped, driving through the orc forces. Nain would meet Azog himself in battle, and is described as being both weary and filled with anger. Azog dodges the dwarf's blows, and when Nain stumbles, Azog hews and breaks his neck, killing Dain's father. Despite the loss of Nain, the dwarves drove back Azog's forces. Yet as Azog himself turned to flee, one young dwarf would pursue him. Up the steps after him leaped a dwarf with a red axe. It was Dáin Ironfoot, Nain's son. Right before the doors he caught Azog, and there he slew him and hewed off his head. That was held a great feat, for Dain was then only a stripling in the reckoning of the dwarves. But long life and many battles lay before him. Dain takes the head of Azog and places it on a pike, and stuffs a purse of coins in its mouth, in direct retaliation for the orcs' treatment of their former king. At just 32 years old, Dain was hailed for his great feat in the defeat of Azog, avenging both King Thror's death and that of his father. In this moment, with the orcs defeated and the dwarves avenged, King Thrain II, Thorin Oakenshield's father, wishes to enter Moria and drive the orcs from it once and for all. However, Dain dissuades the king, for it is said that when he came down from the gate, he looked gray in the face, as one who has felt great fear. For Dain had caught a glimpse of none other than the Balrog, Durin's bane, and he knew that the dwarves could not hope to reclaim Khazad-dûm at that time. Dain and his people returned to the Iron Hills. His grandfather Thror, who had not gone to war, continued to rule for the next 6 years before his death. Thus, in 2805, Dain takes over the lordship of the Iron Hills at the age of 38. In 2866, he has a son, Thorin Stonehelm, named after Dain's cousin. It is said during Dain's rule, the Iron Hills became the strongest realm in Rhovanion. In Unfinished Tales, Gandalf explains that should Sauron send a force to regain the northern passes and the old lands of Angmar, only the dwarves of the Iron Hills could have resisted him. But behind them was a dragon, which Sauron could use to terrible effect. In 2941, Gandalf sends Bilbo Baggins and the company of Thorin Oakenshield on the quest to reclaim Erebor. Smaug would indeed be slain, and the small group of dwarves reclaim the mountain. With both Bard and Thranduil wanting compensation for their suffering caused by Smaug, Thorin knows his group of 13 cannot hold the mountain, and the raven Roak agrees to bring word to Dain. Thus, the Lord of the Iron Hills learns of Smaug's demise and rallies over 500 well-armed and experienced troops to march to his cousin's aid. Dain's original intent was to drive off the elves of Mirkwood and the men of Laketown, but at this moment, Gandalf arrives, informing them of the approaching army of orcs and wargs. Dain, Thorin, Thranduil, and Bard's forces unite, and together with the late arriving Great Eagles and Beorn, they would be victorious in the Battle of Five Armies in the Valley of Dale. Tragically, Thorin is mortally wounded in the fight, and his sister sons Kili and Fili die defending Thorin as he lies wounded on the battlefield. With the death of Thorin, Kili, and Fili, Dain now becomes the rightful heir to the throne of Durin's folk, and he succeeds his cousin as king under the mountain. We are told Dain proved a great and wise king, and the dwarves prospered and grew strong again in his day. During his reign, Erebor becomes exceedingly rich and prosperous. The town of Dale is rebuilt, and the friendship between the elves of Mirkwood, the men of Dale, and the dwarves of Erebor is strong, especially between the men and dwarves. In the Fellowship of the Ring, we are told the kingdom under the mountain now exceeded all their ancestors in the arts of masonry and mining. Nearly 50 years after reclaiming the mountain, Balin becomes anxious to reclaim Moria and brings together an expedition. Dain, knowing more than any the peril of this venture, does not give the expedition his blessing. Yet Balin and his company would not be dissuaded. While it was successful for a time, the colony in Moria is destroyed after 5 years. In the year 3018, when Dain has been on the throne for 77 years, a messenger comes from Mordor, seeking information about Baggins of the Shire. And then his fell voice was lowered. As a small token only of your friendship, Sauron asks this, he said, that you would find this thief, such was his word, and get from him, willing or no, a little ring, the least of rings, that once he stole. It is but a trifle that Sauron fancies, and an earnest of your goodwill. Find it, and 3 rings that the dwarf sires possessed of old shall be returned to you, and the realm of Moria shall be yours forever. Find only news of the thief, whether he still lives and where, and you shall have great reward and lasting friendship from the Lord. Refuse, and things will not seem so well. Do you refuse? Dain said, I say neither yea nor nay. I must consider this message and what it means under its fair cloak. Consider well, but not too long, said he. The time of my thought is my own to spend, answered Dain. For the present, said he, and rode into the darkness. It is unknown who this messenger was, whether the mouth of Sauron, a Nazgul, or some other messenger, but regardless, Dain sends him on his way twice. After spending much thought on the situation, Dain sends Glóin and his son Gimli to Rivendell, both for counsel and in hopes of warning Bilbo that the enemy is looking for him. While Gimli joins the Fellowship of the Ring, it's likely that Glóin returns to Erebor. Months later, war comes to the Lonely Mountain, as Sauron sends an army of Easterlings in a northern offensive. King Brand of Dale, the grandson of Bard, initially holds the line at the Carnan River, but is driven back around March 14th. For 3 days, the men and dwarves fight the Easterlings before the gate of Erebor. On March 17th, King Brand is killed in the battle, and Dain, now over 250 years old, yet still mighty, stands defending Brand's fallen body until he is also slain. The Easterlings are victorious in the battle, and the dwarves and men are forced to retreat to the Lonely Mountain. Led now by Prince Bard II and Dain's son Thorin Stonehelm, they withstand the siege for many days. On March 25th, the ring is destroyed, and Sauron is utterly defeated. This news comes to Sauron's northern army, causing them to lose all hope of ultimate victory. Seeing the morale of their foes has plummeted, Bard and Thorin lift the siege on March 27th and drive the Easterlings out of Dale. securing victory in the northern theater of the War of the Ring. As the remaining members of the Fellowship rest in Gondor after Sauron's defeat, Gandalf recounts the great deeds of Dain Ironfoot and the importance of the great dwarves of the north.
"I grieved at the fall of Thorin," said Gandalf, "and now we hear that Dain has fallen. Fighting in Dale again, even while we fought here. I should call that a heavy loss, if it was not a wonder, rather, that in his great age he could still wield his axe as mightily as they say that he did, standing over the body of King Brand before the gate of Erebor until the darkness fell. Yet things might have gone far otherwise, and far worse. When you think of the great battle of the Pelennor, do not forget the battles in Dale and the valor of Durin's folk."
Thus, Dain II, also known as Ironfoot, would be remembered as a great king under the mountain. From killing their foe Azog in his youth, to winning the Battle of Five Armies, leading Erebor to new heights of prosperity, and fighting to his dying breath, resisting the forces of Sauron, and like Kili and Fili before him, giving his life, protecting the fallen. As always, I want to say a huge thank you to my Patreon supporters who make this channel possible. Tom DeBombadil 19, Listen Me the Cinda, Kella Brimbor, The Mighty Mim, Team Weasel, Rabbi Rob Thomas, Charles Leisure, Toby Mobs Music, CCDC Red Team, Nerd Sidgeman Anytimer, Pelkey Sports Cards, Mookie the Brown, Christopher Carbaugh, Joe Tepper, Julian Brown, Sky Carcass, Slide Belts, Dane Ragnarsson, Salim Rahman, Zetrock, Berto Berg, Grand Strategy Nerd, Graham Derricott, The Dark-Haired One, Wyland, Michael Wu, Grant McGregor, and Debbie. If you enjoyed the artwork in this video, check out the artists in the description and purchase prints of their great work for yourself. Thanks so much for watching and subscribing, and we'll see you next time on Nerd of the Rings.